So you consider yourself to be a kind, compassionate, loving person, and you do all that you can to help others as often as you can. But there are some people that just seem to take and take and take. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. And at some point, you find that you need to say no to them. But when you do, you find yourself on the enemies list. Hi, my name is Richard Haight. I spent 15 years in Japan studying the samurai arts, earning 4 masters in the arts as well as 1 in a healing art. During that time, I experienced a great enlightenment, and I'd like to share some of the wisdom of that with you. But before we start the video, I'd like to introduce you to the Warrior's Meditation. This is a meditation that is done actively. It's not like any meditation you've ever heard of before. It will permeate your life, providing great clarity and presence throughout all that you do, active or while seated. Click the link below for a free 7-day trial. I hope to see you there. And now on to the topic of this video. There are simply people out there that function as if they're parasites. It's not so important to understand how they became this way. It's enough to know that it's a strategy that they've used probably all of their lives, and it has been successful. There are many ways in which manipulators employ their strategies. For the person who's a dominant type manipulator, they're very, very capable individuals. And they're going to use maybe their money, their power, their personality, sometimes even their affableness as a way to convince you to side with them. So if they have a lot of money, they're going to offer you, opportunities. We saw this very recently in Hollywood. I don't remember the person, but he was using his a director, if I recall. He was using a producer. He was using his Harvey Weinstein, I think his name was, using his position to gain sexual favor, to take advantage of women. That's a kind of manipulation, of course. But then there are other types of manipulation, which is a person who's in power, who's not necessarily doing anything sexual, but they may sort of degrade you or demean you in front of others so that they can take advantage of you. Kind of keep you in a submissive state of mind, keep you on your heels, and so they can take advantage of you, and they won't ever apologize, but maybe they'll buy something for you. They're going to keep you in their good graces somehow to get what they want from you. Still, another type of manipulator is not a person in the power position, but actually a person who's in a very weak position. Maybe they are not very capable individuals, maybe not very confident individuals, but they are very good at getting emotional hooks into you. They're very good at playing the victim role and making people feel that they're kind of cute and innocent. But actually behind that mask is something very, very wicked. And these people will rapidly turn everyone that they know, everyone that you know, against you. It could be friends or family. As soon as you say no to them, you're dealing with an entire group of people. Maybe everyone you socially know who's calling you up and pressuring you because they've heard a sob story about how you took advantage of this, old woman, or this, cute girl, or this weak guy, or this someone that everybody just thinks is adorable, who couldn't possibly be lying, but suddenly now you are in the targets of everybody because that person actually has been lying about you. They've been saying awful things about you because you've said no. And now you are in the target and everybody is believing them. These people are very good at putting up a mask and hiding their falsehood and essentially taking advantage. How do you deal with such a person? Now, the first issue is that, of course, not only are you dealing with the person who's attempting to manipulate you, that in itself is difficult enough because it might have been someone that you had originally trusted. It might be your mother. It might be your sister. It might be your girlfriend. It might be your boyfriend. It might be your father. It might be someone that you trusted, and you're finally seeing through the veil of that difficulty of their personality and how truly wicked they are underneath of it. How really they don't care about you. They only care about themselves. And they're going to take advantage of you at all costs. And so that can be a big setback, because a lot of kind of who you are, what you think you are, is connected to that person. Much of your life story may be connected to that person. But now you've got something on top of that. Your brother, your sister, your best friend, your father, maybe your daughter, they're calling you. And they're telling you how terrible you are for not being there for that person when they need you. And maybe they're telling you all the lies that they've heard from this person that they've believed. And the unfortunate thing is that you're assuming that people are just going to, they're going to be honest and open like you are, and that they would research the facts and they'd want both sides of the story, and they would just, they would be as compassionate as you are and not just assume. You're wrong. The vast majority of the case, a manipulator has surrounded themselves with people who are not that clear. Prior to you waking up, you might not have been that clear yourself. And now you've woken up and you realize that everybody you maybe know or close to, maybe everybody in your family, they're not clear. And they're still bamboozled by this person. And now their compassion, their love for that person has become a demon. You're the enemy. And like a mother bear who protects her cubs, they're protecting this manipulator. And you're the aggressor because of the stories that they've been told. The first thing that you're going to try and do probably is to talk sense to these people. And you're going to be banging your head against the wall for a long time, because that doesn't work. They're in a highly charged emotional state. And people in a highly charged emotional state are usually unable to hear. Very rarely are individuals able to hear in that way. And when I mean very rarely, I mean 1 in 1,000. And so the more you say, the more skeptical they're going to become. The more suspicious they're going to become. Everything that you say is going to bury you deeper. The best thing you could do, oftentimes, is to say nothing. When a person starts accusing you, the first thing you should say is, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but you don't have any proof and you don't really know what you're talking about. I'm sorry to say that, but that's a reality. And until you are willing to speak to me honestly, I have nothing more to say to you. Thank you and goodbye." Now, they're going to probably try to call you back, but they're still in an emotional state, so they're not going to hear you. Don't talk to them then. They need weeks of time. They need a lot of time to calm down. And until they do, they are not worth talking to. Turn off your phone if you have to. They're going to leave messages on your machine telling you how you're such a terrible, bad person. And you're going to start to question, maybe I am a terrible, bad person. Am I crazy? Did I not understand? And now you're doubting yourself. And this is exactly where that manipulator wants you to be. And what they're going to do is just keep laying on the pressure until you back down and you never say no to them again. And the reason they're doing this is because it works. It works. All the person needs to do is point the finger, maybe shed a few tears, and they've got you, because everybody's going to feel compassionate for them. And compassion is not actually a virtue. At least the compassion that most people think of is not a virtue. True compassion is a compassion for all things, and it's not an emotionality. But what most people think of as compassion is not. It's a kind of inner demon, actually. It serves a purpose when it's in the right place in the right time, a mother protecting her young child. That serves a purpose. That's an angelic force that serves a purpose. But beyond that, it can become very destructive. And so what's the solution to this? The first solution is to understand where your pain is coming from. But your pain is not actually coming from them. It's coming from two things, actually. One is that you yourself are not, you're still in you're still in a place where your sense of self-worth is being determined by other people's opinions of you. You have a question of your self-worth. And I don't mean that you should be more confident. I don't mean that you should have more self-esteem. I don't mean that at all. That's a game that everybody loses because you're still playing the game of self-measurement. So long as you play the game of self-measurement, there is constantly a self-doubt that's going on. There's constantly a game, a mental noise that's going on. What I mean by having no question of your self-worth is I literally mean no more attempt to measure your self-worth. Clarity. Not how how loving you appear to be or however loving other people think you are, or how good people think you are. None of that. That means, doesn't matter how many people think you're great. It doesn't mean anything actually. It doesn't matter how many people think you're bad. It doesn't mean anything actually. The question itself is a dead end. Stop measuring your self-worth is the first thing. And that requires a tremendous input of time into meditation generally. Prayer is a good thing. Spending time in clarity, even short moments, but times of clarity where there is just presence and being without any measurement of self. That's one of the most important answers there. There are a number of other answers, but they can kind of take us down a rabbit hole that if we're not really willing to go to, can cause a lot of trauma. So let's go back to just dealing with those manipulators. If there's a question of self-worth, you're going to suffer. And if you're going to suffer, then you're going to want to end your suffering. That's the next danger. So now you start drinking a little alcohol, you start smoking a little cannabis, you start taking some sort of opiate, you do all kinds of, maybe get into a loose sexual relationship or whatever in an attempt to distract yourself, to numb yourself. You may fall into tears and go into a self-sob story about how terrible life is, and all of these things. They're not actually the solution. The solution is very simple, and it's not necessarily pleasant. It's to bear your cross, to stand up straight and move forward with your life, with or without those people. Expecting these people to change or to understand your story and your perspective is foolhardy. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't try. Go ahead and try. Just understand that it very rarely works. Very, very rarely works. In fact, usually it just fuels, because now they've got little hooks in because they know you want them to approve of you. And that's their power, is that you want their approval. And they know that. And so long as you want their approval, you're at their mercy. Move forward with your life. This has happened to me several times in my life. And one time I handled it very, very well. And one time I did not handle it well. The time I handled it well was when I was very young. I was dating a girl. She was a narcissist, and I didn't realize it. When I broke it off with her, she started telling stories to everybody about me, terrible things that I never even found out what the stories were. They were so bad, no one would tell me what they were. I can take a good guess. But suddenly, all of my friends cut me off. No one would speak to me. So this was what they weren't even trying to change me. They just wouldn't even speak to me. And I went probably 6 months without anybody speaking to me. And the only way it turned around, now I didn't try and call them up and ask for them to, I wasn't begging for them to call me, or I called them a few times, they didn't call back, and that was that. I knew what had happened. She told stories, I knew, About 6 months later, my best friend at the time called me up and asked if he could talk to me. And when he met me, he told me that she had said terrible things about me, and it just really made me look awful. When I asked him what she said, he wouldn't tell me. He said, they're so bad, I can't repeat them. And the only reason he saw through it is because she dated another one of his friends. And when they broke it off, she said the same things about that fellow. And he knew that that fellow didn't do those things. And so that's how he saw through it. But I never found those other friends, never regain contact with them. It's not that I was opposed to regaining contact. If I'd seen through it, I would have happily accepted them as friends again. In another story, it was someone who's asking for help. This very much like I described in the beginning of this, and overstepping their bounds considerably, asking me to do things that person really needed to be doing for themselves. And when I said no, the person started telling lies. And then, of course, the floodgates opened. All the, social friends, family, the whole thing, came to apply the pressure. And in my expectation that they should understand because they're so close to me, I tried to convince them. And that only made things worse, much, much worse. This is the most common way that it will happen. The vast majority of the cases that's what will happen. The best thing to do is just move forward with your life. Those who actually care about you, that might take them a little time to wake up. But those who actually care about you and really do want to know you, eventually they will come and speak to you. And if they were in the wrong, they'll apologize. But the key point here is that you move forward with your life, taking authority with your life and moving forward without the question of your self-worth. For so long as your self-worth is in question, other people are in control of you. And this brings us to the last part of our analysis here, and that is dealing with survival. So we've just been socially ostracized, probably. And for some of us, we may depend on those individuals around us, maybe fellow employees, our boss, it might be our work. We find in society now that someone can say something about you on social media and you could lose your job. So there's survival elements involved here as well. So we do want to handle things as tactfully as possible and realize that in some cases we may need to be honest. If you need to put food on the table for your family, you might have to continue in that relationship for a little bit longer until you kind of find a better avenue. That's a reality as well. And while I may not have made that choice in my life, and I certainly paid for not making that choice, it's important to understand that that is a choice for you. And there's no judgment on my part about that. You do what you need to do. In the awakening path, at some point, you will have hard decisions to make, but you really do have to be at a place where you're ready to make those decisions. If you make a hard decision like that, and you're not quite ready for it, you may end up having a lot of resentment. That's not going to be helpful. In either case, none of these decisions are easy. But we do have to make decisions, and we do have to move forward with our lives one way or the other. But we should be aware of the decisions we're making, and we should understand the energies that are coming from these other people. And most importantly, we should be aware that compassion, or what people think of as compassion and their empathy, what people think of as their empathy oftentimes is what is used to destroy. It is the energy that fuels their attacks. They will think that they're coming from a loving place. Just realize that that type of love can be very destructive. And if you're receiving that type of destructiveness, you may need to unplug the phone. You may need to move away from those people. You may need to take time for yourself. Take time away from these people to see who's legitimately your ally and who's not. And you may be shocked to find that you have had no true allies, or very few true allies. But switch your position there. The attitude is oftentimes the issue here. Even if you've got only one that shows up as a true ally, at least you know this is a true ally. That's someone that you really be thankful for. And you've just saved yourself a whole heck of a lot of time wasted on those other people who were just going to take advantage of you, who don't really understand you, who would think those awful things about you unquestioningly at the single pointing of the finger. All someone had to do is shed a few tears, few phone calls, and pretty soon you've got an avalanche of judgment against you that's based on thin air. Those are not your allies. Know that and move forward with your life and find true allies. If you cannot find true allies in your life, anyway, move forward with your life in the best way that you can, being authentic and deeply clear, being as loving as you can and supportive as you can of those people who mean well, at least. The more that you distort the truth of what you feel, the more that you appeal to people liking you and trying to be liked, the more you're going to draw manipulative people to you. And typically what will happen is once you go through this period, you're going to have a drought, a social drought, and it may last a few years. But what will happen is that gradually you'll come out of that like a cat, like a butterfly emerging from the cocoon, a different, more clear person. And that being will draw to it much more authentic people, loving people, people that are drawn to your clarity. But there is a period of time that you may have to go through, a drought, so to speak. Know that that's where you are, and whether you give in to the manipulator or not, you're going to have a period of suffering. It's just, is the period of suffering a suffering that makes you stronger or weaker? That's the question. If you'd like to be stronger in your life and be able to move through these difficulties with more clarity, click the link below. Join the 7-day trial for the Warriors Meditation. We meet every day. It's live and on demand, so you can take it at your time. Hope to see you there.